This week is the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov, who began the Hasidic movement, one of the most important and lasting movements in Jewish history. And we are going to dedicate our Living with the Times episode this week to learn a little bit about the Baal Shem Tov. He was born in 1698 in the Carpathian Mountains, and it was a terrible time for the Jewish people then. It was a very dispirited time. He was born only 30 or 40 years after the disastrous false messiah Shabbatai Tzvi, which traumatized the Jewish people, and only 50 years after horrible persecution and a slaughter of hundreds of thousands of people in the Ukraine. And so at that point, around 1600 years of exile, the Jewish people were very downtrodden, poor, and dispirited. And the Baal Shem Tov came with a refreshing message of hope, of joy, of rededication to Torah, to love of every Jew. And he literally woke up his generation and paved the way for a whole new direction in Judaism. On Rosh Hashanah in 1746, he had what's called an Aliyat Neshama, an elevation of soul. And in this very, very elevated mystical meditation, he came in contact with the soul of the Mashiach. And he asked him, when is the Master coming? And the Mashiach put it back on him. And he quoted a verse, Vayafutzu ma'anetecha chutza, when the well springs of your Torah reaches the farthest limits. And that became the mission, the task of the Baal Shem Tov, and in a sense, the Hasidic movement, but especially Chabad. To understand how the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he came to Crown Heights from Europe, then the Frierdiker Rebbe was the Rebbe, but they were in Crown Heights, and Chabad was a very, very small, almost marginal Hasidic movement. And the past Lubavitcher Rebbe took these three words, Vayafutzu ma'anetecha chutza, that the well springs of your Torah, the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, the Torah of Chassidut, the Torah of the inner dimensions of the Torah, need to be spread to the whole world. And in the 40 years that the Lubavitcher Rebbe headed the Chabad movement, he established Chabad centers and institutions and Chabad houses literally all over the world. Today, there are 4,000 Chabad couples doing shlichut, spreading the words of Torah, literally in countries around the world, everywhere that there are Jews. And that is really taking the vision of the Baal Shem Tov and putting it into a practical plan that has obviously worked, because Chabad is quite literally everywhere. So the 18th of Elul, Chai Elul, Chai is 18 equals life. Chai, l'chaim, equals life. On Rosh Hashanah, in the Amidah, 4 times we say, Zachrenu l'chaim, remember us for life. Melech chafetz b'chaim, the king who desires life. V'kadveinu b'sefer ha'chaim, and write us in the book of life. L'mancha Elokim Chayim, for your sake, the King of life. So this desire for life, of course, has been with Judaism forever. But there's no doubt that the Baal Shem Tov came on the scene and he lifted up his generation and all generations after him to put chiyut, life force, into our service of God, in our prayers. The Baal Shem Tov was instrumental in bringing joy and song and excitement into our prayers, just joy in general. He was a master storyteller. Rabbi Nachman, his great-grandson, also became a master of storytelling. And in our generation, Reb Shlomo Carlebach was also known for his heartfelt stories that he sang. That was his innovation. So the Baal Shem Tov really brought life, Chai Elo. He brought life to the Jewish people. And the vision that he had a vision of the Messianic era. He made an attempt to come to Eretz Yisrael, which was almost unheard of in that day. He didn't make it. But just the fact that he tried to make it helped open the gates for his followers to come to Eretz Yisrael. And look at us now. We are 1 foot in the redemption. We have to get that other foot in. So we remember and thank and praise the Baal Shem Tov for all that he did and how he paved the way that will really only be complete when the whole Jewish people return to Eretz Yisrael at the time of Mashiach.